Hi, the objective of this lesson today is if you make up a melody with your on the piano, right, and you've got a series of notes, how can we use that now information of the melody to harmonize and work out what key signature we're playing it in, what chords we could use, what mode we're in. So made a systematic approach where you can determine what key signature, and there could be several key signatures over a specific pattern, and the objective is to find the key signature of the best fit, where it fits in best. And there's the process. I'm going to break it down into steps. So determining key signatures and modes given a collection of notes. Now, if you've got the key signature and the mode, then you know what chord suggestions you can use. Right? So we're going to have a look at all that. Now, we're just going to pick as an example a very simple little melody. So let's just have a look at the notes here. Now, I've removed any key signature here. So when we're looking here in this, so this would be in the key of C, right? But we have one note here, and it's A flat, right? So there's A flat. Now, we want to work out where does A flat fit in, because we know that in the key of, say, C, there's no black notes. In the key of F, right, we have, which is, we'll go to the key of G. Right? So we'll go clockwise around the circle so we can go anti-clockwise, right? Or we'll go anti-clockwise, so we've got F, okay. So B flat would be the first black note, right? And then E flat in the key of B flat will be the next black note. And then E flat will have A flat, right? So it's about 3 or 4 around the circle fifths before we get to that A flat. So what key signature would best fit? Because any one of those you could well, any of the 12 key signatures you can represent this melody, but you're going to get a lot of sharps and flats, and so we want it the most simplest way to represent this. All right, so let's have a look at it. So, so now the first bit of information we're going to need to progress is the harmonic interval series of all the modes. Now, in the key of C, right, we know what these are, so this is something given, right? And you can work this out by just looking at in the key of C, and you're just reading it off. So if that's the root note C, you've got the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, sixth, seventh, and then the 1, right? Dorian, if we're in Dorian, we're going to start from D to D and just read off the intervals. So we got the 1 there, we got the 2, minor 3, 4, 5, 6, minor 7, and the 1. Right? And Phrygian is from E to E. This is in the key of C only. Remember, this is key independent, but to visually see it, we can just put our head in the key of C, and it makes it much easier because it's the most easiest key. All right, so the Phrygian 1, minus 2, minus 3, 4, 5. Right? It's got a plus 5. It's got a minus 7. So that's how we do it. So once we have this information now, that's the first bit of information we need, right, to continue the process. All right, so we've got a melody. Now let's just have a quick look at these. The first thing to do when we see a melody like this, what we want to do is we want to pick a bass note, right? And then we're going to write down all the intervals of all the unique notes. So we can see we've got C here, which happens 4 times. We could choose C as the bass note. But the first, and it doesn't matter which one you choose, right? The first one we're going to choose is going to be the lowest note. We're just going to choose that. All right. So we have G here as the lowest note, right? So first step, we have a process. So the process involves writing down all the unique notes within the bar of music, right? So we just write down the notes of what we see. Choose a bass note. This may be any note, although the correct note will make life a little easier, and you'll see what I mean as we move on. Using the bass note as your reference, determine all the harmonic intervals and write them down. And write down the formula, okay? Using, where are we up? The final step is to compare all the intervals with the natural modes of the Western major scale for the best fit and then write down alteration operations. Okay, let's break it all down. So for step one, you need to decide on the root note of the melody. If you're unsure which note to choose, because you could choose any one of those unique notes, right? We're just going to choose the lowest note. Right? Just choose the lowest note and go through the process. In this case, it will be G. So if we have a look here at the notes, we can see that the lowest note here is G. And the highest note, right, is D. Right, so we have C to G. So it's just the maximum spread between all these notes. They all lie within a fifth. Now that can be useful because it's going to simplify the outcome of the formulas we're going to come up with. And I'll show you how. So it's not a bad choice choosing G. Okay, so we simply write down the notes. All right, so if we just look at the notation and write down the notes, we have G, and we can just move upwards. We've got G here, we've got A flat here, right? We got, what have we got? B, C, and D, right? So we're going to write them down. Step 2, G, A flat, B, C, and D. That's our first step. Now, that's the second step, sorry, just writing it down. Now we've chose the bass note G. So now we need to represent each one of these notes and see how I've written them in order just going up. So G's the lowest, A flat, then B, C, D, and that makes the process easier. So we have G as 1, right? So G's going to be 1. So all we've got to do is work out what A flat is in reference to 1. Well, you can see it's a minor second, so we just write minor 2. The next is the note B. What is B? Now, if you look here, right, B is a major third, right? 2 tones is a major third, so we write down 3 for the B there. And then we have C, right? So we have G, C. There's a fifth, right? That's a fifth, using the fifth rule. And a fourth is a tone down, so that's going to be a fourth. C there is going to be a fourth, and D is going to be a fifth, like that. Now, once you've got the harmonic formula, this is now key independent. We can transpose this formula to any of the key signatures, and we no longer need the notes, right? Now, we chose G as the bass note, right? But you can, by choosing any one of these, you'll get a different unique formula. And we're going to actually choose 2 bass notes. We're going to choose G and then C, but we're going to go through G first and see the results. Okay. A harmonic formula is key independent. Okay. There's no key signature involved here. But what we want to do is we want to place that pattern into a key signature, right? And then we can see what chords it can lie over as well and what mode it lies in. So all that information we're going to extract. Okay. The objective is to find the best possible fit for the key signature mode. Knowing the mode will suggest the chord to use as well. Because we know a Dorian, you got D minor there as your default chord. Of course, you can alter that now to make any other chord, you know, some alteration of D minor. But in the Dorian, you have a D minor. You know, that's in the key of C, right? It'll be another chord in all the other keys. So that type of thing. All right, so once we have the formula, let's move to step 4. And there's only 5 steps. Right? Now, using the harmonic formula, put your head in the key of C. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is just thinking about the key of C, right? Which it does make it a bit easier. Because we know all the intervals for all the modes, the harmonic, basically we've written them down here, right? We've got them here. Because we know all this, we can use this information now. And what we're going to do is, using the harmonic formulas, put your head in the key of C or the white notes. This is going to help you find the 7 pure modal scales. Start with the Ionian 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and ask yourself, what operations do you need to perform resulting in the harmonic formula of step 3, right? So basically, we're going to be looking here and we're going to this is the Ionian just here, right? So I could spread this out a little. I might just spread this out just a tiny bit so these, I've got it all into one line, so I'll bring it down so you can see it. There, that's a bit better. All right, so now we can see it. All right, so here's the Ionian. Remember, an Ionian is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What do we have to do with the Ionian? This is called a transform, right? To get it to here. So we're going to transform from that into that. So we're going to take the Ionian, right? And then we're going to apply some operations so we can result in this. And the way we're going to do it is just, we're going to look at both of them and just compare them. So let's just look at both of them. Okay, what's the difference? The first difference we can see here, they both have a 1, right? So that's good. This one has a 2, but that's got a -2. So we take the Ionian and we have to flatten the 2, which is this operation here, to get to the -2. So Ionian flat 2 will give us the -2. Let's keep on looking. We got a 3 and a 3, so that's the same. We don't have to have any other operations here. We've got a 4, and that's got a 4. That's got a 5, that's got a 5. That's got a 6, but this doesn't have a 6. So we need to remove the 6. That's what the R means, remove the 6. This also doesn't have a 7, so we need to remove the 7. Right? So let's just have a look at this. Now, the objective of this is you can transpose this now. The original notes, right? If you look from these notes here, the G, A flat, B, and the D. They were the original notes, right? But this formula can now be transposed as an Ionian, right? So if it's an Ionian, and we'll think of the key of C to make it easier for us, that's Ionian, right? And the first thing we're going to do here, let's just look at remove 6 and 7 first. Oh, Ionian, there's 5, 6 and 7. Well, they're at the end, right? So really it's just Ionian we play up to the 5, this whole pattern, right? And then the only thing we do now is we flatten the second. So instead of playing a second, this is exactly the same pattern, right? Although it's played in a different melody order, right, in terms of the notes, we're just looking at the pattern, because the actual notes of the actual bar give you the feel of the actual what the possibilities for the melody are, right? So by playing just the scale, you can think of it as a scale. By just playing that, you can come up with variations now to create different melodies. And this is one melody variation. But the foundation of this melody is this scale, right? And again, we're just going to move it so we can see it here. Is this scale. So it's Ionian going up to the 5th and just flattening the second. And it has this feel, it's maybe Arabian feel about it or something. So that's a key of C. But now you can transpose that to any key, and it can be quite easy. So if we go say G flat, we're just playing up to the 5th, right? But we're flattening the second to there. Same, isn't it? It's the same, but it's a different key. So we've got 12 options to put that pattern into. Remember, this pattern is key independent. This is called a pure modal scale, and it's also key independent. All right, so that's one option. Now we have that information, right? We have 7 choices, so to represent each mode. So let's look at the Dorian now. So here's the Dorian, right? 1, 2, -3, 4, 5, 6, -7, right? We want to transform it into our harmonic formula that from these notes up here, right? From those notes, we want to transform it. So, and if you look after we can do it for all 7 modes, There's the transform. So this is always the same here, right? Because that's the harmonic formula we want to get to. But we've got a different starting point here. So let's look at the Dorian and compare it. So we're doing a compare, that's all. So it has a 1 here and a 1 here, right? So that's our root. We've got a 2 here and a -2. To get to the -2 from a 2, we have to flatten the second, right? Because this had a second and this had a second too. We flatten the second. So that's sort of the same as the ion in there. But this we've got a -3 and we want to get to a +3. So we need to sharpen the -3, sharpen it. So we take a Dorian, we sharpen the -3, and we get to 3. Now this is a 4 and a 5, and this is a 4 and 5, so we don't have to do anything here. This has a 6. This doesn't have a 6. This is a -7. This doesn't have a -7, so we have to remove the 6 and remove the -7. Okay? So we call that pure modal scale as a Dorian. Right? You can see there's more operations here. We've got 2 more operations and the 2 removed. So we've got 4 operations. Here we only got 3. So by finding a key signature of best fit, we want to look here and look for the ones with the least amount of operations for the best fit. So let's keep on going and we'll do each one. Right, so let's look at Frisian. So there's the formula for Frisian. We just compare it with where we want to get to. So again, we got 1 and 1. We got -2 and -2. Good. So we don't have to add anything there. We got -3 and 3. So we've got to take the -3 and sharpen it to get to and that will get us to the 3. We got a 4 and a 5, right? And we got a 4 and a 5 there, which is nice. We got a +5 there and a -7. So here we don't have a +5 or a -7. So we just remove the +5, remove the -7. And that's how we get from this Frisian to where we want to get to. And that's the final result where we want to get to, which was a harmonic formula from up here, right? Which is the representation of this. Okay, so that's Frisian, and that there has only 3 operations too. So that's a nice one. It's only got 3 operations. So Lydian now, there's our formula for the Lydian. We're going to want to transform it into here. So let's have a look. The 1 is the root. 2 and -2. So we take a 2 and we flatten the 2 to get to the -2, right? 3 and 3, we do nothing because they both got 3. -5, this hasn't got -5. It's got a 5, right? So what do we do here? 3. I think there's an error here. 6, remove 7, that's 7, 6. 5, there's the 5. -5. Oh, sorry, no, that's correct. If we flatten the -5, we get to the 4. Okay? There's a -5, there's a 4. Right? So if we flatten, so that's correct. So we flatten the -5 and that will get us to that 4 where we need to be. Right? And we remove, and we have a 5 on both sides, then we remove the 6 and the 7. So that's correct. All right, next one, Lydian. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the natural Mixolydian. Sorry, Mixolydian. We want to get to here. All right, so we've got a 1, 2 and a -2. Okay, we need to flatten a -2 to get to flatten the 2. Sorry, that's wrong. Flatten 2, Mixolydian. Flat 2 to get to the -2. All right, so that should just be flat 2, and I'll correct that. Okay, so that's just flat 2. The next one is 3 and 3 will do nothing. It has 4, it has 4, it has 5, it has 5. Then it's to remove 6 and remove -7. There they are at the end. It's nice to have removes at the end of the formula because they're very easy to handle, because you just have to remember when you're playing in real time, because that's the whole purpose of this, is to understand in real time what you're doing. If you're playing in real time and the removes are at the end, you only have to remember to go up to, say, a certain interval. In this case, we're only playing up to the fifth, right? So that's very handy, right? So by choosing G as your bass note and knowing that the maximum spread here is a fifth, you know you're going to get removers at the end, and they're nice to deal with. So a good safe move is always just to choose the lowest note, but sometimes the spread might be not that possible, because it could be, you might have a -2 and a 7 as well as a root note. It might not be that easy. But anyway, so let's just keep on moving on to Mixolydian, Aeolian now. Bring this back down to there. So again, here's the natural Aeolian. And so we've got a 1. So we've got to get, the 1 is the root. We've got to get to -2 from 2. So we've got to flatten the minus. I did that again, didn't I? So we've got, I'll fix those two up. So if we have a 2, we got to flatten the 2 to get to -2. So we just don't need the minus there. It's just flat 2. Same with that, right? I can quickly go and edit that now, and seeing we're here, we might as well. So we're just the back scenes of preparing these lessons. We'll just quickly do that. All right. And we'll just get to it. And we'll just, so I can show you again here. So if we've got the so the Mixolydian, we want to get to from 2 to flat 2, right? So we just flatten a second. Flatten a second will get us to there. Same in here. Flatten the second will get us from a 2 to -2. And this has got -2 minutes. All right, so I'll just publish that. And we'll get back into it. And okay, so let's have a look now. I'll just refresh this. It takes a couple of refreshes for some reason before it actually works. So we take a 2, one more refresh. There we go. It's done it. Okay, so we take the 2, flatten it to get to -2. All right. Aeolian, -3 to the 3. Remember, an Aeolian has a -3. If we look in the key of C, there's a -3, right? We want to bring it to a 3. So what do we have to do? We just got to sharpen the -3. So this tells you what to do, right? So we have something we already know how to play, and these are just the operations we need to do. All right. And so then we have a 5 and a 5. That's fine. We have a 4 and a 4. Now we've got a +5 and don't have a +5. So we remove the +5 and -7. Now the Locrian has a -2 with -2. It's the same. -3. So we have to sharpen the -3 to get to the 3. It's got a 4. It's got a 4. It hasn't got a 5, right? And it's got a -5. So we can get to -5 by just flattening the fifth. Sorry, we've got to get to fifth 5 from -5. By sharpening the -5, we'll get to the 5. Oh, I was going the other way. So sharpening -5 will get us to the 5. Doesn't have a fifth, right? It's got a +5. Sorry, that's the Locrian. It's got a fifth here. Sorry. Okay, and there's no +5. That's correct in this, and there's no -7. So we're just removing +5, removing the -7, and we're sharpening the -5 to get to the 5, and the 4's there, and we sharpen the -3. So basically, it's just 2 sharp operations, and we'll remove. Okay, so Locrian. So let's have a look at these now. So we call these pure modal operations. Now, if we just put our head back in the key of C and just examine these, right? We have Locrian. We know what a Locrian is. We can just play from C to C. right? And if we're going to remove the +5 and -7, it's going to be, see the Locrian has that -5 there. That would be the fifth rule, right? Perfect fifth. That's got the -5. It only goes up to the -5 because we're here, right? We're going to remove the +5. Where's the +5's up here? That's the fifth. That's a +5. We're going to remove that, and we're going to remove the -7 before we get back to the B. So we're only going to play up to here with a lot. We're only playing up to here. So far that's easy to remember, right? But the only thing, what else do we have to do? It's not the same interval. It's not the same melody, right? It's not the same interval series. We're going to sharpen the -3. Where's the -3 there? So we're going to be up there, right? And what else do we got to do? Sharpen the -5, right? So up there. Right? So it's clear that this one is a bit easier to remember, isn't it? It's easier to remember Ionian because there's only one operation. So we call these pure modal scales, and we want to look for the least operations. Mixolydian. So we wouldn't use Locrian because it's too, although you can get used to it, of course, there's two operations. And because we already know what a Locrian is, right, we have to remember two alterations. Same with the Aeolian. The Mixolydian's okay, we've got one operation, so let's look at that. Mixolydian is just, right? And if we're going to remove the 6 and the -7, we're only going to play up to the 5th. So far, so good. And flat -2. No, that's wrong too there because remember it was flat 2 and flat 2. So I'll correct those two as well. Right, so there's a pure modal scales. So that's a flat 2. A Mixolydian is a flat 2. Publish that. And just refresh that a couple times. I use Google Sites. It's so easy just to edit things, and you can do it remotely. So it's really useful. All right, so Mixolydian, again, up to the 5th is just there, right? And there's the 2. Easy. Similar now to the Ionian is easy. It's the same, isn't it? It's a flat 2. Ionian Lydian, Mixolydian, sorry, is flat 2, remove 6 and -7. This is remove 2, 6 and 7. Right, so only playing, that's what we're actually playing, right? Because we're removing the others. And we're only playing that, which is Mixolydian flat 2. What about Phrygian? It's got 2 removes, right? So let's have a look at that to play. All right, so the Phrygian will start on E. So it's got sharp -3. So we're just going to make it a major. Right? That's the same melody. So that's easy too. That's pretty an easy one. One operation. So if we can get to one operation, that's great. Usually 2 is okay. Anything more than 2, it's too hard to remember, and it sort of defeats the purpose. So you want to choose. So you're trying to choose a key signature for this, right? So far, these are all key independent, right? All these are key independent. We can apply that Ionian to any of the 12 keys. We can apply it, and the same with the Dorian, all these. So our next step is, all the above pure modal scales have the exact same harmonic formula of 1, -2, 3, 4, 5. All those have the same formula. Right? You can check that for yourself by just really looking at that. All this is on the website. Right? Link down there. Step 5. All right, so the next step now is we want to know what key signature that we can put this in. Right? We already know what note we chose as the bass note, which was G. Right? Determine all the possible key signatures when G is the root note. To find the key, you need to know the following, right? So this is another bit of information you need to find. Now, all this is saying, right? All this is saying is, let's put our head back in the key of C. And Ionian has a root there. We start with a root 1. Now, for the key for Dorian, so if we're in the Dorian mode, say we go D Dorian, right? And we're playing from D to D. We know the key's going to be C, right? So from D to find the key, right? If we're D Dorian, right? To find the key, we just go a tone down. So the key for Dorian is a tone down the keyboard to the root note. And that root note's going to be your key signature, C. So for Frisian, remember in the key of C, it's always going to be C, right? We're moving up, it's going to be C. So you can see that the Frisian starts on 2 tones from the root. So if we have E Frisian, that's going to be 2 tones down. The key for Frisian is 2 tones down the keyboard to the root note 1. C is the key. Get it? So Lydian, there's our Lydian. That's a perfect 4th because there's a 5th. It's a perfect 4th down to find the key. So if you're saying F Lydian, the key for F Lydian is the key of C. If we have G, G's a perfect 5th, right? So the key for G Mixolydian is C again. A Aeolian is a 6 down, right? A 6 down, or a quicker way to find it is just a minor 3rd up, right? The key for Aeolian is a minor 3rd up the keyboard to the root note 1. So if someone says A Aeolian, right? So we start on A, and what key signature is A Aeolian? Just go with minor 3rd up, key of C, right? What's the key signature of A flat, right? A flat Aeolian. Well, you go a minor 3rd up, B, okay? So a minor 3rd's a tone and a half, right? B. Locrian's easy because a Locrian is just the next note up, semitone, right? Minor 2nd up. The key for Locrian is a minor 2nd up the keyboard to the root note. So if someone says B Locrian, the key for that is going to be C. If I say E flat Locrian, the key is going to be E. If I say A flat Locrian, the key is going to be A. Okay? If I say C Locrian, the key is going to be D flat. All right? So now what we've done is we've placed this formula that we have here into a key signature. And we have a chord at the front because that was the root note we chose. Okay? So the chord that we can choose for this, we sort of decided that, we almost decided that when we chose that bass note. Right? And if we put it in the mode of Ionian, let's go back here. Well, it's going to be a G major. Right? If we decide we want to be in the key of F and have it as a Dorian, well, G, Dorian is a G minor. It's going to be a minor. Right? If it's going to be in Frisian, it's going to be the key of E flat. Right? So we can now have a choice. So which key will we choose? Well, remember we said Ionian was a nice one because it has the least operation. So we could place that in the key of G, right? And then readjust the flats here if we need it. Put these in the key of G. Another nice one with the least operations was E flat, had 1 operation, right? Sharpen the minus 3rd as a Frisian mode. So it'll be G Frisian, right? If it's G Frisian, it's going to be a minor. Frisian's minor, right? So again, we only play up to the 5th. and we take sharpen the minor third. So G Phrygian's in the key of E flat, right? So if we see a Phrygian in the key of E flat, what's a key of E flat? So you do have to know all your key signatures. You can't get away with that, right? You've got to know your key signatures. So there's G. But we're only going to play up to the fifth there, right? Because we're going to remove the +5. There's a +5. We're going to remove that, and we're going to remove the -7. So I'm only going to play up to the fifth. And Phrygian, and it's the key of E flat, right? And we're going to sharpen the minor third. There it is. There's our pattern, right? Now, so once we work out what this is, we can look down and just remember what we're playing and what key signature is, what we're in, key of E flat. All right, so that's another one we can choose, and it just happens to be that this original piece that I took this from was in the key of E flat. Wasn't the best choice. Wasn't the best choice because they had a natural. They had a natural there. It was actually taken from my notation research. So this was the original. So that was the original. I don't know if you can see it there. If I bring this a bit shorter, yeah, that's a bit better. That was the original one, but I put it in the key of C, so I took that out, and then I just adjusted this, right, with a 1 flat there, here, which was that one there, right? So if I go back to, so now what we're going to do now, and it doesn't matter that this video is dragging on, it's going to be a long one. So you can get this all in your head again. We're going to choose another one. Now, when we choose a different root note, in this case, the choice is going to be, we're going to look at this. Because C appears about four times in this, I'm just going to choose C because it's heard the most in that piece. So I'm going to keep that as our root note, right? So once we have that as our root note, we need to find all the other intervals in reference to it. So you just follow the steps again, right? Choose the root note. We're going to choose C. Then we're going to keep C down there and just write down all the notes. It was D, G, A, flat, B. The same notes, the same physical notes, right, as was the previous one, okay? Because these are physical notes. These are absolute notes on a staff. They don't never change, okay? They never change. So these notes won't change either. I just put them in a different order, I just made the order C, D, G, just to rise up, to make it easier to to write down the actual harmonic formula. So 1, C now is going to be 1. Now we're going to get a different interval series. What we're actually doing is we're creating modes. These are different modes. Because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 unique notes, you're going to, by having any one of these as the root note, you can have 5 different modes of that same melody, right? Just like, so they're related. They're all related, right? Because we had an original sequence of notes, and we just chose 1 as the root, and then if you take a bass note and move it up, you get inversions. So if you don't get that right now, doesn't really matter. But that will make a lot of sense once it starts to sink in. So we've just chosen C now. So there we've got C, D, G, A flat, and B in order. So let's just have a look at this. C to D is its second, right? C to G is a fifth. You can see that. C to A flat is a +5, and C to B is a major 7th. You see that? So by choosing C, right, we're not going to have, we're going to have some remove operations in the middle, not at the end. They're nicer at the end because it's easy to remember on the piano. But once you work it out anyway, you'll visually remember it. So, but all right, so there it is. There's a harmonic formula. So we go through the process again. Now again, I'm just going to widen this a little bit because I'll widen it. We'll start here, and I'll move up. I could have made the whole thing, but I like a big long line. I think it's easier to see. Okay, so we've got, again, all these are the modes: Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and the Locrian. And we're going to transform them into where we want to be. We want to be there. So all these are the same. We want to be there. 1, 2, 5 plus 5, 7. 1, 2, 5 plus 5, 7. 1, 2, 5 plus 5, 7. We want to get there, right? But from a different starting point. In this case, it's Ionian. All right, so let's just, all we do is compare. 1, 1 is going to be the same. It's a root note. 2 to 2, so we do nothing. We don't need to add any operations because we're not transforming it. It exists. We have a 3 and a 4 there. We don't have a 3 and a 4 here. So we can remove the 3 and the 4. Ionian, remove 3 and 4. Then we've got a 6 and a plus 5. Well, to get to a plus 5 from a 6, we can just flatten the 6th, and that will get us to the plus 5. And it has a 7 and a 7. All right, so let's have a look at this. Ionian on the keyboard. Head in the key of C. There's Ionian. Now we're just going to remove the 3 and the 4 to those two, right? Now it's a bit. So we're going to play all these. So I think I'll start on the second finger there. So. But it's not exactly that because we have. It's going to be Ionian flat 6. Oh, okay, so where's the 6? There. So it's now this is a different formula, right? This is a different formula. It's going to have a different sound, but it's a mode, right? It's a mode of the original, right? It's another mode. Okay. So, and that all depends on what root note you choose. So you've got a lot of choices, right? You've got a lot of choices. So let's go back down to here. And we're going to see if we're going to get different, easier results, right? I like the G because it made it easier to handle, but you can do it this way too. So let's have a look here. So we got a 1, 2, minus 3. So we got a 1, 2, minus 3. So we need to remove the minus 3, remove the 4 because there's no minus 3, 4. There's a 5 and a plus 5. So that, there's a 5 and a 5, so we do nothing. There's a 6. We want to get to plus 5. Well, if we flatten 6, we get to plus 5. We've got a minus 7 and a 7. If we sharpen the minus 7, we get to 7. Right? Flatten the 6, we get to plus 5. Sharpen the minus 7, we get to 7. That's where they are. Right? So we could look at that. Let's look at that Dorian. Right? Now, it's a different mode, so it's going to sound different, right? Than the original one, right, when we had G, right? And I'm just playing it in order, right? So let's have a look here. Okay, so we've got a Dorian. So if we look at here, we've got Dorian. There's our Dorian. Remove -3 and the 4, right? So we got that's back to the Dorian. And then what we have to do is flatten the 6. So we've got 2 operations, so it's going to be harder to remember it, right? To do it live. But if you're composing a piece and this is the way you want to play it, well, that's totally up to you, right? So we've got the Dorian here, -3 and -4. And then we flatten the 6, right? To there. And then we have a Dorian, we got the sharp, the -7, right? Back to the D. So sharpest, there's a 7 Dorian, sharpen it to the, sorry, there's a -7, there's a Dorian, D, we sharpen it, so we're up here. So we've got these notes, right? We flatten the 6. So it's a bit of a harder one to remember, right? But so you've got to, but it's going to sound differently because it's a different mode. Just like the natural modes, if you play them, they're all going to sound different, right? These aren't natural modes, but they're still modes. They're different modes of the original scale. And we're just showing them in terms of the natural modes because we know how to play natural modes. And once we know how to play a natural mode, we know how to alter it if we have operations. So you can see that having removes at the front make it a little bit trickier, right? Because it's easier to remember just to play up to a 5th and forget about things to the right, as we did here in the first one. So that was a good choice choosing the root note, right? Because the spread here was only 5. But let's just keep on going. You go through the process here. So again, 1 to 1, so we on the Frisian. -2, we've got to get to a 2. So we need to sharpen again. I've got this wrong here. We need to sharpen the -2 to get to a 2, right? So let's correct that. So we take our Dorian, our Frisian, to get to a 2 from a -2, we've got to sharpen a -2. Right? So we'll check these. To get to a 2 to a 2 is fine. 2 to a 2. -2 to get from a -2 into a 2. Right here on the Lydian again. I got that correct there. Sharpen the -2. Let me just publish that. Right. Step 4. Let's one more time. Okay, so sharpen the -2 will get us to a 2. -3, we remove the -3 and remove the 4 here because there's no -3 and 4. We have a 5 on both sides, so we're good. Got a +5 on both sides, so we're good. We've got a -7 and a 7 over this side. So all we take the -7 and sharpen it, and that would give us a 7th. So it's a Frisian, -2, sharpen -2, remove -3, 4. So again, this is a complicated one because there's 4 operations to remember. Now you can sit there and work it out, right? Right, there's your in the key of, we'll just do it in the key of C. So there's your Frisian, and it's going to be remove -3 and 4. So I think it's always good to start on this index finger here, so you can skip those easy. Then you're going to work out which fingers you want to use. But now we've got to Oh, we got the. I'm forgetting the two. Right? Are we Frisian? Oh, I'm sorry. We're Frisian, which is here. That's Frisian. Okay, we're removing the 3 and the 4. There, we got that so far. Moving the 3 and the 4. And now what we're going to do, we're going to sharpen the -2. So we're going to bring it up to there, right? Like that. So far, we got that. And then what's it? One more thing. Sharpen the -7. There's the -7. So it has a different sound, right? Different feeling. All derived from that single one sequence of notes. We wrote down, we chose a bass note, then we wrote down a sequence, a harmonic interval series. And so in this case, 1, -2, 3, 4 in the first case. And if we start on, say, 2 here, 1, -2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if I take this bass note here and move it up here, so this was 1, -2. And if I take the bass note, see, it's a different mode. Sounds different now. Now, if I take that note and move it up to there, I get, and they all have different sounds. So you just keep on flipping, right? So it doesn't really matter which one you start on, but you might as well start on the lowest one, and then you'll get all the different sounds that's possible, determining on the amount of notes you have. So you got 5 unique notes. You can get 5 modes. They might not be unique, but in this case, they sound like they're going to be all unique. I've only gone through 2 of the modes, right? So, and not to get confused with the natural modes, right? So any sequence of notes, right, that you choose is a scale, and any scale has modes. They might not be unique. For instance, a whole tone scale only has one unique mode. So, all right, so if you go through the process, you're going to get a new set of pure modal scales, right? You'll get a complete new set, right? Which will have a different sound and feeling, all stemmed from that original. Again, you want to now place these in key signatures. Well, Ionian you're going to go through the same logic you did. Ionian is going to be in the key of C. Dorian's going to be B flat. C Dorian is going to be in the key of B flat. It's a Dorian. C Frisian is going to be in the key of A flat. 2 tones down. C Lydian, right, is going to be in the key of G, which was a perfect 4th down. Then C Aeolian, we can either go down to 6, right? Mixolydian. Mixolydian is in the F, which is a 5th down, right? Perfect 5th down. Aeolian, C Aeolian, we can go a minor 3rd up, which is going to be key of E flat. And Locrian is going to be the key of D flat, right? So there's our keys we can choose. Now we just want to look for the one with the least operations. CIA, we could put it in the key of C. You could put it in the key of, that has 2 operations, G. E flat has 2 operations. Not the best key to choose. Key of C is probably the best bet here because there's only 1 operation. Everything else here has two operations. Yeah. So choosing C as your bass note wasn't the best choice. Right? It just seems like you can try the others too if you're keen enough. Um, so now we have choices to continue the piece of music. We can choose a key signature. The original music was E flat, but we could choose one of these other key signatures we want and place that song. Anyway, that's the process. It might be, I don't know if it's not that difficult, but it sort of is, I think. I don't know, to get your head around it. I'm used to this now, so it sort of makes a lot of sense to me. But if you've seen this for the first time, it'll take a while to sink in. So, but we'll see what else we can do with this down the track. Is useful for compositions and real-time playing, and also just general understanding of a melody and how you can place it in different key signatures. Right. Anyway, that's it for this lesson. We've gone on almost an hour, so I think that's enough for any lesson. Okay, see you next time.